Okay, this is number 1 on test A and number 2 on test B. And it talks about tossing one coin 3 times. And first it asks us to make an organized list of this. You could do this with a tree diagram, or you could just make a list. So if I toss a coin, I can get either a heads or a tails. So on my first coin, I could get a heads. And let's just say what could happen. I could get 3 heads. Or I could get a heads, and a tail. Or I could get a heads, then a tails, then a heads. Or I could get a heads, I want to do it this way, tails, heads, heads. So far I've done the chance of no tails, and I could get a tail, one tail, last, in the middle, or first. What if I get 2 tails? So I could get heads, tails, 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 heads, tails, or tails, tails, heads. And then my other options, I could get all tails. That's an organized list. We could also do it with a tree diagram and say first I get a heads or a tails. Then if I get a heads, I get a heads or a tails on the second toss. And if I get a tails the first time, I could get a heads or a tails. And then on each one of these branches, so this is the first toss, this is the second toss, and then I could do my third toss. And on the third toss, I could get the same thing. I think this is probably a little bit simpler to understand, but this is the tree diagrams like what we did in class as well. Here I have 8 outcomes, and here if I count and I go along how many different paths I could have, it's these right here. I still get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So now it says, what's the chance of getting exactly 2 heads? And I'm going to mark them. 2 heads would be these right here. I'm going to see if you can see this color. So that's all of these right here. There's 3 of them. These right here have 2 heads. So if I look at it this way, this is 3 out of 8. I could also look at it over here, and I'm looking for ones where there's 2 heads. So this one has 2 heads, and this one has 2 heads, and this one has 2 heads. And those are the only paths, so that's again 3 out of 8. That's the first question.